I can do so many of these things, you know,
on
by
your
myself.
phone. Yeah.
And then the virtual identity card that I have, I can use it at any time. Okay, so this is it, my virtual identity card. It's very secure. I can have a virtual ID. In case you don't say, okay, you don't have it, okay. Well, just go
How
to
does one get
NIMC.
a virtual ID card?
It's just Nimsi. It's go to your App Store or Play Store, whichever one you have, and download it. It still works. And if I go to the airport or something, and they need any kind of confirmation, I show them this one. It works.
Oh,
they let me go, and you can scan. There is a barcode to scan. So my point is, these things should be easy. If you are unable to do it, then there is a problem. I remember, which conversation were we having earlier in the week, or maybe was it even last week, talking about data in silos. Okay, we're having this discussion with Dr. I think it's Dr. Tijani, the Minister for digital
Technology.
Communication. Yeah, and he was saying, look, I said, look, why should we have data, you know, in silos and all that? That's not even the problem for him. The problem is
aggregate.
Yes. How do you bring everything in such a way that I can access my data from Alero, I can access my data from Ifoma, I can access my data from any of the agencies that have it, get data from the police, get data from ICPC, get data from whoever at the moment that I need it. That is the issue. So I think that's one of the conversations that we need to have. Do we share data? Does INEC share data with the police, for instance? Does the bank share data with the Ministry of Interior?
There should be a central data system to which all of them can access.
Exactly the point.
And get the information
what
they
Dr.
need.
Tijani was saying in that interview was, look, that's a good idea, but it's not the way technology is. We should have a system such that we can all stay in one place. I can, from my computer, access any data anywhere. I access bank data as a policeman, access police data as an EFCC person, and that's what he's talking about. It's close, the next best thing to harmonization. So to the point that you are making about Nigerians abroad not having, if we have harmonized data, people can access data anyhow. I don't think that should be an issue. There is the issue of security, there is no doubt about it. But what we are doing to ensure that the data is secure, and when I access my data, I don't make myself vulnerable, I think that's a real issue.
So NIMC, you need to let us know, or let them know, that is diasporans, how they can get their NINs without having to come to Nigeria.
But you know, there's something that
because a lot of them have bank accounts that they want to continue running while they're out there.
And I'm still surprised that as at now, sincerely I am, that as at now, we're still talking about NIN-SIM linkage. I'm hearing that the federal government, some people are still asking the federal government to defer the NIN-SIM linkage until March 31.
Which
in my head, I'm like, wait a minute.
How many years?
So many people struggled. So many people had a tough time.
Getting
so many people, yes. When the federal government put them under pressure at the time. So many JAM students couldn't write JAM. So many students couldn't write examinations simply because of that problem of NIN-SIM linkage. So if some people still don't have it, can we shut them out for a while? Why do we have a government that we cannot even obey ourselves?
The man don't vex.
No. I mean, people were punished for it. People will get up very early, like say 5 a.m. from wherever they were.
To go and queue to get their NIN.
And at the end of the day, they still didn't get it. And then some people were, I understand that, was it the telcos or some banks or whatever, they had scouts, okay, that, okay, you can, you know, register X number of people, you get a percentage of whatever it is that and all of that was done at the time. And some people are still asking for
have it.
Come on. Come on, man. I don't understand it.
Anyway, I was playing on my phone early this morning, and I found some very interesting information. 10 richest Yahoo boys in Nigeria. And I thought to myself, oh, their name is on the internet. So how come the police haven't picked them all up? Okay, they will have no fixed addresses, just names.
Okay.
I was quite tickled.
Well, one of the first thing that came to my mind, is what's the funniest scam that you told me one this morning?
Yeah.
That they wrote to you and you had enough time
to actually answer because I was on holiday. Oh, we are cousins of Charles Taylor, and we found that he has some money in Nigeria, loads in the millions. And we have profiled you, and we believe that you are an honest person, and you can help us get this money out. And after you've got this money out, your share is going to be some huge number of millions that they were going to give me. I said, for God's sake, listen to yourselves.
So you had time to sit down, compose a
reply. Just listen to yourself, guys. You have no relations. You approach a complete stranger.
And you now turn down such a contract.
Oh,
Jesus. If it was me, you know what I'd have done? I'd have said, thank you very much for the act, for coming. This is what we do. We do it all the time. And we have testimonials to the effect. Well, just a heads up, my service charge is 10% of the whole. But to activate this service, you have to pay $20,000 into a dedicated account in cryptocurrency.
Talking about cryptocurrency.
So they will know that this one is the 419 or 419. Nonsense.
The Olori of the 419.
Please share with us any of those scams that ever came to you that you find ridiculously funny. Of course, the email address, you have it, with you, sunrisectv@channelstv.com.
Oh, God.
It'll be interesting to hear from you. Yes, share with us. And you can also share it on X as well. It's ridiculous.
Sometimes they get ridiculous.
I would tell them, look, if you want me to work for you, no problem. Just pay $20,000.
Perfect stranger. Come on.
Currency. No, sometimes you need PI, and you don't want to know your PI.
To help you collect millions. And if your story does happen to be true, and the person does bite the bait, collects the money and takes off with it, then what?
No.
Anyway, there is no money to start with.
It's because you are trustworthy. License and ingredient.
Yeah, you have checked me out, and you have seen that I am trustworthy.
We did a background check on you, thorough background check with FBI data. Nonsense. Next item.
Bitcoin. Sorry, Binance. You were talking about them paying you in cryptocurrency, weren't you? Well, if they had paid into a Binance account, that money would probably be lost now.
Yeah, no. One of the things that you do in that kind of is just withdraw immediately.
And disappear.
I cannot come and
go and sit on the beach in Acapulco.
No, I can't come and go and kill myself and die. But you wanted to talk about Binance. Oh, yes. Even that drama.
That's this crypto business. We've had people explain to us on this program how profitable trading in crypto is. We've spoken about it a number of times on Sunrise. And then to hear all what we're hearing now, it's shocking to me. And I'm wondering, so all those people, because quite a number of people had actually switched to trading in cryptocurrency. So what's happened to them? And what's happened to all their effort and all their investment is what I'm thinking.
Well, first of all, cryptocurrency is very profitable business, no doubt. However, as in every profitable business, it's a high risk.
The risks are high.
So the profit can be as good as 0 to 100 in a fraction of a second. And the loss is the same speed, So my own personal orientation about crypto or any such businesses, if I'm going to get involved in it, I will, with money that if I lose it,
you will not mind.
I will not cry.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's what. However, I think the regulation is the thing. When it becomes risky for a nation, I think it is indeed something for anyone to worry about. It's gratifying that at least one way or the other, the federal government is getting involved, getting interested in all of the conversation. Amazing, no doubt. But at the end of the day, let Nigerians themselves beware. We know that the federal government, the previous government said that they weren't interested, so we started in-era. I don't even want to go into that one. Allow me to celebrate something. Two things, actually. Number one, my people in Aba.
Oh, yes. Congratulations, Abia State. Congratulations, Governor Oti. Well done. 24 hours power.
No, 48 hours.
Oh, sorry.
As at that time. And some of them are like, in fact, I saw one person who made a video and said, hey, about the lead.
the girl.
Yes, like, it's all firing on all salvos and everything.
Yeah.
But I like the philosophy behind the choice of Aba. Professor Naji said, Aba is a manufacturing hub.
Yeah.
And should consequently be celebrated. I applaud it. I will always reference this permutation by Dr. Leke Alder, that Nigeria should be regionalized into their areas of strength.
Yeah.
Talked about the southeast, I think, as Silicon Valley of Nigeria or something like that, and talked about the north in a particular way. One of these days we'll discuss that. It's beautiful. And this thing dates back more than 10 years, if memory serves me right. So that is a good thing. And I'm hoping, as we discussed yesterday, that all governors, all governments in Nigeria will also take advantage of that. It was the Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala that Professor Naji said, advised that, look, why don't you do something like this?
Yeah.
And he beat the bull. He took advantage of it. And today, the rest is history, as they say.
And the joke now is that industries in Lagos are going to be moving to Aba because of the amount of money they're going to save from running generators, especially as diesel is going up every day. Diesel is now in the region of 1,500 per liter now.
It's a joke. Because the logistics of moving whatever from one place to another is another issue of urgent national importance.
Equipment.
So, but I guess that's a challenge for the Lagos State government. I know that the Lagos State government has also started doing something like that. I think they are setting up already a Lagos State electricity regulatory something. I think that's already in the offing. And talking about
Lagos State, the red line.
2 of 7.
Well done. Well done.
So, all of those conversations, I guess, when you do it right, we will tell you that you are doing it right. If you are not doing it right, we will not shut up.
Okay, now what are we talking about this morning?
No.
Erasing the corruption tag on Nigeria. It's about time we began to work on that.
About time we did that.
Okay, before. Okay. When is the next best time? Now.
Not tomorrow, please.
Exactly.
Not tomorrow. Tech for Good. We'll be talking about that one as well. Fighting illicit financial flow.
And how do you cope in difficult times? That'll be on Lifestyle this morning.
We can't but talk about that one because more and more people,
these are difficult times.
These are very difficult times. And our artist of the week today is it's
a he.
It's a Syncomat.
Syncomat.
We'll find out that one later.
Well, we do learn new English on Sundays these days, don't we? New words coming up. Well, okay. So you've learned another one today. And he will explain to us what that means later.
When the time comes. Well, you have to remember that I said this word.
Syncomat. Let me write it down. All right, so get your cocoa.
Or cocoa, whichever one works for you. I'll be right back.
Thank you for joining us this first Saturday in the month of March. Now let's get the show on the road. Systemic corruption is a major obstacle to stability and economic development in Nigeria. Estimates show that in the 60 years since independence, corruption has cost the country and the country's economy more than $550 billion.
Wow.
The EFCC recovered at least $750 million in local and foreign currency linked to corruption and fraud in 2021. Despite numerous efforts to combat it, corruption remains deeply entrenched, rendering Nigeria's governance system ineffective and the nation practically ungovernable. Now, our topic this morning is erasing the corruption tag of Nigeria. So we have a panel who have ideas as to how this tag can be taken off our backs. It's my pleasure to welcome in the studio in Lagos, Dr. Olugbenga Adeoye, who is a chartered accountant and a lawyer. Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
With us is somebody whom we haven't seen in a long time, the Director of Programs and Senior Facilitator, Institute for National Transformation, Mrs. Juliet Benitier. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Ma.
Even though it's
pleasure. My pleasure, Ma.
And we have joining us virtually Professor Olawale Ajayi, Professor of Legal, Social and Political Environment of Business and Head, Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School. Good morning, Prof.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Let me begin with the lady, since they say ladies first. We've carried this tag for a long time. Transparency International will come out with its own. People who want to lend us money, they run away because they say we are corrupt. And now, well, okay, not now. I mean, all our presidents have come into power telling us that they are going to fight corruption. Yet we have not seen any reduction. Even the gate man wants anything for the boys before they will allow you in to go and see somebody you want to see. You want to see a guy, a boss in the office. The clerk wants you to grease their palms before they take your complimentary card in for the boss to see you. How are we going to just quench this? Because erasing the corruption tag looks like we can just wave a wand and everything will change. It's going to take generations, isn't it? Because this thing developed
over time
and has become, I think it's at its worst level now.
Well, I don't think it's going to take generation. It's going to take political will. The late Prime Minister of Singapore made a bold statement, said corruption is a threat to any society. As African leaders, over the time since independence of many African nations, let us say 60 years of African independence, there's a book by Meredith that spoke about the state of Africa. And in his cataloging of each state of Africa, right at the foundation of Africa, we could see literally the root of corruption was already planted. A society needs to be developed. I always tell my students when I'm facilitating, I said, angels and spirits don't build cities. Cities are built by human beings. And so when Africans think that by one wand of prayer, which prayer is required, or by one wand of action, something would change, it's not going to happen. For us to deal with corruption, in the 70s, corruption was even frowned at, even under the military era of Gowon. My father was in service. And I remember it was Itaka or somebody got a telephone for his girlfriend. And it became an issue that warranted the government to take action. But over time, from 1975 all the way downward, corruption has not been punished. Thank God the lawyers are here and all the professors are in the house. The reality is that whatever you do not punish does not go away. Nigeria does not have an act for corruption. Is there a clear-cut corruption act where we list what it means to be corrupt? I was shocked that even in the United Nations, the definition for corruption was left at the level of the individual state. But the general definition was given, but each member state needed to define clearly what is corruption. So when we say corruption, what exactly is corruption for Nigeria? Has Nigeria ever sat down to define ABCD is corruption? Because a man gives his friend a contract who is in office, he doesn't see the conflict of interest. A man does something for his brother against others who are also qualified, he doesn't see anything wrong. We have incompetency in power. We have leaders who have no right to be in level 16, level 15 and above, who are there because they know someone. Until we defined what corruption is, right from the National Assembly, can many of them sit back and say, let's define corruption. And if I am one who is not guilty, because corruption actually is a social context. First of all, right from our belief system, as a people, I have a mother who told the daughter, you are in Lagos. Why are you not sending things down the way other people are sending to their families? What are you doing in Lagos that others are doing that you are not doing? The villagers do not understand what corruption. So you have a national orientation agency who has not defined her job, her role, her purpose in a context of a nation of over 200 million people. It is not as difficult to deal with corruption, but the biggest decision has not been made. First of all, whatever you don't define, you don't know. You can't punish, you can't legislate, you can't put a policy around it. So until we do that, we can begin to eliminate. But as for now, there are issues as we go into this discussion that would help us minimize, reduce. But to say that we're taking it off our back completely for now is going to take us at least a decade.
Okay. Dr. Adeoye, the issue that she raised about defining corruption, and if you had to put that in a book, would it not be this thick?
No, it doesn't have to.
Okay.
Okay, let me say, because I grew up among elders, and I speak with Yoruba proverbs. But let me start with a quote from Harry Truman, who said, show me a man that gets rich by being a politician. And he said, I will show you a crook. So that's the first aspect we must look at. And you know, as a lawyer, you don't even
Harry Truman wasn't just a professor.
You don't even need anybody you don't need any other thing other than literal rule of interpretation. There's no ambiguity about it. If you see a man that is wealthy by just being a politician, then you have seen a crook. He has no factory. He is not a professional. He doesn't do any other thing than politics, and he's wealthy. Then that is a crook. And that's what is leading to the issue of second address for people that comes into politics. Second proverb is a Yoruba proverb, and I will try to interpret. And it says, Ọmọ yín ò ṣàgbàfọ̀, ó ń káṣọ wá sí ilé, ẹrújú olè ẹ ò mú. So your child is not into laundry business, and he brings all kinds of clothes into the house every day. And you do not see that that is a thief. So, and that leads me to the hypocrisy of the Nigerian population.
That's it.
You know the thieves, actually. You know it. I recall Dr. Nolapo Shuleye was narrating a program he watched on TV. And he said to me that there were two sets of National State Assembly members in my state, in Ogun State. And then one was loyal to the governor, others loyal, to other parties. And then they wanted to remove the speaker, the lady then. And then those that were loyal to the governor, they were talking on television. And they said, when we came to this state assembly, we were on bedroom slippers. And all of us now, we have tear rubber. Now, and he said to me, Gbenga, he said, as much as he supports that governor, but he's worried that people who were on bedroom slippers suddenly have tear rubber by being in the state assembly. So, and that's the issue of Eruju Oleomo. You've seen it too. The third one is Gandhi. And Gandhi said, one of the social sins on earth is wealth without work.
Yeah.
Now, the value system leads me to J.F. Odunjo, who said, Ishe logun ishe. He said, work is the antidote to poverty. Mura sishe oremi. Work hard, my friend. Ishe lafin denigiga. It's through hard work that you can become great. And it says further, Ya really low, your mother may have money, and your father may be wealthy. If you rely on them, you will soon be ashamed.
That's it.
And then it says further that a child that is roaming around not working is going to cry at the end of the day. Now, what does this leads us to? The value system. Politicians who do not have known address of business suddenly become billionaire in office. Then that's the problem. So, the issue of wealth without work as a social sin, and then you not being able to substantiate what you have from proceed of genuine business activities is enough reason for you to be kicked out of office. So we cannot talk about how this corruption is done and what we can do about it unless we get this value system right. That, Mr. Man, what are you into? You are riding a car of 300 million. Your house worth 3 billion.
But the question sometimes,
what is your business?
Doctor, the challenge sometimes is who is going to do the asking?
That's the thing.
Let me ask Prof. Thank you, Alero, for even identifying the fact that corruption is like a beautiful woman. It is in the eye of the beholder. So it depends on who is beholding corruption. That person will define it the way he wants. How does that strike you?
Well, actually, corruption is defined in the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission Act as including bribery, fraud, and related offenses. Of course, the general definition of corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private ends. There is the definition of corruption in Nigeria. There's a very good legal...
I'm sorry. You need to define that again. You at least give us that understanding again. You said it's in a law in Nigeria. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission Act defines corruption as including, so that it's not an exhaustive definition, as including bribery, fraud, and other related offenses. And I then went on to say, well, the Act also defines what a gratification is. I think it's also useful for me to mention that Act penalizes corruption in the public sector and in the private sector. It's interesting that it is an offense under that Act to refuse to give information that someone asked you for a bribe or that someone offered you a bribe.
Oh.
So the law is quite clear and explicit as far as corruption offenses are. Of course, we also have the EFCC Act, which is concerned with economic and financial crimes. And that basically goes to offenses that impinge on the economic integrity of the country, or are also meant to house it for private gain. It lists a long list of things that amount to economic crime. So corruption, well, I think probably the best thing to say is that when we talk about corruption, let's recognize that we're talking about crimes, so that we deal with the crimes rather than this word corruption that exhausts us when we begin to discuss. So the important thing is to enforce the law on this type of criminal behavior. Having said that, it is also useful to mention the fact that corruption is not merely an issue of moral failing. It is also an issue of the institutional structure of the society. In other words, if you do not enforce laws, then deterrence will not be instituted, so people will feel encouraged to be corrupt. If the economic incentives sort of predispose you to be corrupt, you'll be corrupt, whatever society you happen to be in.
So
now,
okay, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll finish on this. You know, when Nigeria had NITEL, and we had only about 450,000 lines or whatever it was, it was a lucrative industry to, bribe to get the telephone line. Of
course.
But when, things were liberalized, we brought in the telcos. There was a market in that regard. I mean, you can get a SIM card for free. Not that there won't be corruption, maybe there's regulatory corruption and so on. However, it takes away the incentive for people to be corrupt, which is what led Christensen, Ojomo, and Dillman in that book, The Prosperity Index, to say corruption is not the problem. Corruption is actually being used by people as a solution to systemic inefficiencies in the society. And that societies move from overt and unpredictable corruption to covert and predictable corruption before they finally become what is called a transparent society. But even in the transparent society, it's usually that corruption is sophisticated. It's not that it completely is eliminated.
Yeah, Prof, what we're talking about is the tag that is seriously maligning the image of Nigeria, and so much so that there was this video making the rounds about some fellow imitating the identity of former president of the US, Donald Trump, talking about how the Naira is falling and giving that image that is incredibly horrible about our country. Now, from all that we know, there are laws. I mean, you've just quoted two of them, the EFCC Act, the ICPC Act, and all of that. Do you think we're doing anything systemically to combat not just the act of corruption, but the image, the image of Nigeria that it is denting? Do you think we're doing anything systemically about that?
Well, we have efforts in place, but they are dysfunctional. Of course, we've had EFCC, we've had ICPC. And by the way, the only reason why we had these commissions was because the police could not apparently deliver the goods, because, bribery and, all those extortion, was fraudulent false accounting, all those definitions and offenses are also contained in the criminal code or in the penal code, as the case may be. And so effort has been made to frontally tackle crimes of corruption. Now, it's a moot point how well EFCC has done, how well ICPC has done, but I think it's very clear and in fact, Nigeria's perception, corruption perception, using the Transparency Index has hardly moved very much. I think the last we had maybe last year was 145 from 150 nations. So you need a systematic effort to deal with corruption. So making sure your economic system does not incentivize corruption will go a long way in fighting corruption. Making sure that leadership sets the right example, whether it's political leadership, traditional leadership at the level of the home, sets the right example. Making sure there is rule of law. I want to mention Botswana in Africa. It's a country that is a middle-income country. It's a country whose leaders have placed themselves under the law. In other words, it's the discipline of subjecting themselves to the rule of law is something they have done in Botswana. Whilst it's not a paradise, Botswana is very much an example and a benchmark for African countries in terms of how to ensure that the issue of corruption is minimized. So even our traditional, our culture, all those type of things need to be aligned and right. I'll just end by saying if leadership sets the right examples, if our economic models are right, if law enforcement is right, if we encourage freedom, we encourage rule of law, so then we will find that there is corruption is actually being gradually minimized.
Okay. Dr. Adeye, Prof spoke earlier about the ICPC Act and spoke about the one who is receiving and the one who is giving the bribe, and if they report it, what should happen. And it reminded me of the celebrated case of Miss Ote, the Security and Exchange Commission at that time, who confronted a lawmaker on national television. And as far as I remember, nothing happened. Or am I wrong?
You're off your mic.
Oh, my mic is off.
Okay. You see, Prof has spoken well. Prof has quoted the law. But the law itself is not our problem, the law that is in place. The problem is actually the people. You just quoted an example, and I remember talking to that woman in Washington about that event, and we all laughed over the matter, The issue is this, and I will give you an example. Justice Bakri is still alive, 92 years old now. He said he was working with the Nigerian Railway, I think maybe in the 50s or so, and then one day, proceeds of corruption were gathered, and then he was given some money. This money was actually higher than his salary. So he took it home and was rejoicing that he's made money. And the father looked at the money, did not speak about it, and then on Monday, he followed him to work. And because the father was also a staff of Nigerian Railway before, and he went straight to the head of department and said, I want you to transfer Demola out of this place, wherever they are sharing money. I don't want him there. So he told me the story by himself. And he repeated the story on 1st January 2024 again this year when he was in my house. So he said from that day, he was moved to a place where they don't share money. But that was what shaped his life, to look at life beyond corrupt practices. And he was able to go to England to study law in the long run. So the law is there, but you talk about the people. And let me tell you how corruption is being carried out successfully in Nigeria. Number one is over-bloated expenses through agencies, ministry, departments that are adding no value. And thank God for Mr. President. I think he's trying to take the bull by the horn, trying to implement the Orosanye report. But like the learned Six said, the Orosanye report is more or less outdated because there are about 1,500 agencies.
More than double.
How do you carry out corruption? So you have a ministry, agencies and departments, institutions that are adding no value to the country. So you put certain incompetent human beings there, whether with forged certificate or no certificate at all, and then you allocate money to them. And then you have all sorts of expenses, overseas trip, all sorts of things, and money goes down the drain. So
I think you know, to buttress what you just said, I think it will be really funny to Nigerians to know the kinds of ministries, departments, and agencies that they have. Well, we can talk about ministries, but there are some that many of us have never had before, never heard about before. It was I went to Abuja once, just to. I went to Abuja once, and I just saw this signpost. National Literary or Literacy Council or something like Natural Literary Council. What was this one? No one ever heard about it. And there are several. If you want to know how ridiculous some of them are, please pick up a copy of any Auditor General's report. They're online. Google it. You'll find some music. What is this one? How did this one come to be?
And what does it do?
And what does it do?
Because corruption is not a root. Corruption is a manifestation. Nigeria has tried to look at corruption as a root. It's not a root. It's a manifestation. Asian nations, what we call the Asian tigers today, all of them were corrupt once upon a time. There is no nation today that is civilized, that is advancing, that never went through this quagmire called corruption. Even the United Kingdom, where the police was as corrupt as hell itself. But this is the catch. At the root of nation building are two fundamentals: leadership and value orientation. Not values, but value orientations. We always talk about values. Values do not just emerge automatically. Values are entrenched. The value of corruption today as a manifestation of the people has its root cause. It has its root cause in tribalism, trying to find favor for your own people above others. It has its root cause of incompetence, where people who don't have qualification and capacity to lead A to B are in seats. It is manifested also in greed, in the sense that a man who himself is wearing rubber slippers, according to that proverb, wants to tear rubber. Why do you want to tear rubber? What is the value between understanding that work matters, that investment in time, energy matters? Those values are not there. So when you are building a humongous nation and you are giving millions and trillions of contracts and you're thinking you're doing something, that's not nation building. Every nation fundamentally starts with a national orientation mindset, moving the people into a value that you want them to have.
And that's a very long conversation to have. But let me, there is this, I think the three of you have said something along the line of the two emails, well, two messages that we already have, one email, one tweet. The email is from Emmanuel Daudu, who wrote from Ikeja, saying the preponderance of corruption in Nigeria is an indication of a weak nation.
Yes.
The propensity of the political class to be corrupt is fueled because there is no punishment for corrupt practices.
Period. From the beginning.
The repercussions for corrupt practices in Nigeria does not serve as a deterrent to would-be corrupt practices. Hence, the Nigerian state is eternally enmeshed in destructive systemic corruption. I actually started that because it was something that you said.
You
let's
said
learn
deterrent.
from the Chinese.
You said the deterrent.
Yeah.
The word is even worse when we say there is no deterrent to corruption. It's bad enough is that you celebrate it.
Okay.
You say when you say deterrent,
Well,
deterrent is different than
Yeah.
if even for example the story of the 92-year-old man. The law itself is there but not well defined. I'm sorry. When you want to define, every nation is meant to benchmark. For example, in some nations, polygamy is corruption for us women when a man goes to pick up another wife. But in Nigeria, polygamy is culture. So we need to understand corruption has definition and we need to define ourselves. But back to the point of the 92-year-old Baba. The reality is that Baba himself, his moral value, checkmated whatever, apart from law.
Okay.
But on the other side, what would you now do when someone doesn't have the moral value? When a nation celebrates...
Isn't that the reason we have laws? Just 1 second. Isn't that the reason?
No, but the law prevents me. Let me give you an example why the law is not enough.
The point that I'm making is...
I mean, what we have is not enough.
And I think it's So let me go back to you.
Yes.
We have the laws. The laws are explicit. They are unequivocal. And just as you said, the police has the primary responsibility of fighting corruption. When that was not happening, ICPC came to be. When it seemed like some political systems kind of brought down the teeth or the bite of the ICPC,
ICPC doesn't talk about lifestyle.
Came to be as well. So
the lifestyle.
The laws are there. What is the challenge?
Well, okay, the law is just one aspect. And I prefer to talk about fighting crime rather than say corruption. But when you say corruption, you get tired. If you enforce law against crime, then it's more a business-like thing, and people cannot get away with euphemisms. But so that's just one side. As has been said, corruption is systemic. In fact, it's probably correct to say it has become an institution, or it has been institutionalized. In other words, you do not normally get things done except you recruit corruption. So that tends to reinforce corruption in the system. So, and let's talk about corruption in the public sector. There's corruption in the private sector. Yeah. There's corruption in various sectors. And we came from cultures that, until some time ago, celebrated integrity and honesty. So there's also the correlation between the political institutions and the social institutions arising from colonialism. When the colonialists came, and in order to institute their powers, they cranked up the system. So it became, in Yoruba parlance, Akishishe Ijoba Kalagun. In other words, because the political system was not in the interest of the people, so the people can game the system. So even when the political system is not right, you're going to have corruption. And, so that is something that we need to get right. When people feel that some people are more equal than others, when we have the federal character principle that is not being effected in the correct way, then you're going to have societies. I'm talking now about nationalities within the country saying, he's our son, leave him alone, as we had some people say about one governor from one of the south states. So the values have, of course, become debased. So we have to, as I say, go back. But, people who have studied corruption have said one of the major things to do is to ensure that your economic institutions do not encourage corruption. Because once they do, everybody will try to be corrupt. And that is why we had privatization, so that things are removed from, bureaucratic control. When you have to take consent, licenses, and so on, then people just set up roadblocks. So these are some of the things we would need to more readily institutionalize. Even the judiciary has problems, in terms of delay, in terms of corruption, but that's not to say it's wholesale. That's not necessarily every judge is corrupt. Some of the corruption has to do with antiquated or inefficient processes and procedures. These are some of the things that have to be dealt with. And I would say that corruption can be dealt with and should be dealt with. When we had the Obasanjo administration, we had some movement, and we can always recreate those initiatives and do everything to ensure that we begin again to minimize corruption in the system. And by the way, there's corruption even in China and in the Southeast
it's everywhere.
Countries.
It's everywhere.
So don't let's just minimize on ourselves down. It's just that we need, rather than romanticizing culture, to understand that Nigeria is such a beautifully blessed country. Let everybody go back to merit. Let everybody go back to production.
Yes.
Let everybody go back to our culture of integrity. And let us produce, rather than all this rent-seeking around petroleum
patronage,
or now mineral resources. Go back to production, and what you can produce, reward what those who produce, and there's a world to conquer out there. Nigerians are really very entrepreneurial. Get government off their back, and you'll see things change. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Adeoye, let me bring another angle into this. Do you not think that our systems also encourage corruption? Like Ayo said earlier, the police is the major agency of government supposed to fight corruption. But policemen have to pay from their pockets for their uniforms. Some of them you see on duty with flip-flops, with slippers, because they can't afford to buy themselves their boots. Minimum wage is 30,000 naira, approved by government. 30,000 naira. That only says to me, I'm asking you to go and make money to live any way that you can. Because I know that 30 naira ain't gonna feed you and your family and pay your children's school fees. Carte blanche. Make money any way you can to live.
You see, the system actually encourages corruption. When I was in law school, the criminal law lecturer was talking to me privately one day, and he said he was in court, and he saw retired judges filing applications in court to claim their retirement benefit. Then there is a problem. So what that means is that when such a person is in service, he's going to think of, how do I survive after now? How does corruption happen in Nigeria? Artificial contract. Channels, grading of Channels Road to Abeokuta, and there was no road as such. Somebody collected money.
Sorry, Channels Road to Abeokuta.
Yes, grading. Is not asphalt. Grading of Channels Road to Abeokuta. Nobody bothers to find out any road as such. Over-invoicing. Artificial is different. No contract at all. The money goes out. Over-invoicing. Now, the people that are working, they are no longer encouraged. Even if you have business, you look at diesel costs, you look at everything, you look at government agencies that are troubling you, and you look stupid when you are doing business. And so, this is an area. Like my mentor used to say, the take-home of people cannot take them home. He cannot buy rice. He cannot buy any other thing. So he's looking for other ways. And the major one, which is the lifestyle of the society. Everybody now celebrates somebody who is wealthy without asking. You are a civil servant. You are a politician. How did you get this? How much is your salary in 10 years?
Okay.
Are you doing business? Are you selling iron rod? Are you selling cement? Do you have a factory? How did you get this?
No, Dr. D, let's wrap up the next few minutes with lifestyle, which is what, Madam, you've been talking about. Because, and I've said this, I say this all the time, the people who are in government today, be it as civil servants or whatever, a host of them were not in government 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. None of them was in government 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. Not one. Mm-hmm. So, question. If we are to cultivate that culture of a new set of people to get into government and do things the way they ought to be, so that we can remove this tag over time. Mm-hmm. Because, Madam, you said it's going to take 10 years. No.
No, the basic can take 5 years, but generally, the new society. Take, for example, the president right now, the ball is in his court. He's the #1 chief officer.
No, the point that I'm trying to make is, I mean, I'm just talking about in government. Yes. But as we all know, in the private sector, in society. Yes. How do we begin to reverse it in society so it doesn't get elsewhere? I mean, we all heard that jocular story of 3 books that Daddy must buy: Dick, Sean, and Nari. There are 3 different books. It's actually a dictionary. But it's Dick, Sean, and Nari. There are 3 different books, and you give the bill to mommy or daddy, and they have to pay. Why? Mommy and daddy didn't know that it's dictionary you divided into 3. Mm-hmm. So, how do we begin, particularly systemically, to reverse this trend?
There are many ways to deal with corruption in society, but fundamentally for Nigeria now, if you're looking at the now time, there's no other way, but it has to cascade from the presidency down now, for us to begin to minimize. One other way also is the religious sector, whether the Islamic sector and the Muslim, what they are teaching their people on the pulpit. Fridays and Sunday matters. Number one, a nation that must advance must be practical, pragmatic, must understand what do we have. We have 200 million people. We have the elite class. We have educated people. But what system have we built to harness it? For me, when we talk about deterrent of corruption, the people who need to do this job, they themselves need to be rehabilitated because they don't have the capacity. Lee Kuan Yew dealt with police, dealt with custom officers, dealt with traffic police, dealt with everyone who had contact with issues that has to do with bribery and corruption. The face of it. Number 2, he said people who cannot live by the means of their salary. No nation can prosper without an hourly salary. You can't do monthly salary. You cannot. The value of 1 hour must be understood as a nation. As long as you do bulk 30 days, a man disappears half of the 30 days and he wants to be paid. So you need to go back to certain laws with labor. Labor themselves need to deal with corruption. Government, but for today, if you want corruption to disappear in 4 years, 5 years, it's going to start from the presidency. I was speaking to Dr. Akeredolu here. I said, the president, the office of the National Orientation Office should be under the presidency. If he wants this thing to change, we can do it. Cascade to the schools, cascade to universities, cascade to churches, cascade to the institutions. Begin to put time clock. You know the time clock you put for resumption and closure, and stop stealing government time. Be clocking. Begin to have computerized systems of payment. Know where money is moving, where money is coming, who is being paid, and for what. And again, these 2 laws that has been cited does not talk about lifestyle. If I drive a car tomorrow, EFCC does not stop me and ask me, especially even being a female, where did I get my big car? But in the US, when you begin to have a certain lifestyle, the torchlight is going to beam on you. Say, how did he get that money?
Starting from taxes.
They will have finished investigating you
before you
even know. So that's the issue.
So these are the issues that are hand. So if we want to deal with it now, we have to start from up down. But nation either starts this way or a revolution upward. Either way, it has
talk about the lifestyle ambit, because that's what I'm really
on the lifestyle issue. Like I said earlier, no, these are issues. Because you want to go and ask all the governors how much they spent before they got there. We're talking billions of 10 billion minimum, maybe up to 20. ask the people that are in the Senate, minimum 250 to 500 million. The people in the State Assembly, 50 to about 100 million. Just petty to just scratch the back. Now, you now have that kind of a person leading you. The first thing is going to apply is the accounting principle of payback period of investment. So you look at it, and you are not going to put 100 million down, and all you want is 100 million. It's a business that they have turned leadership to.
We have also institutionalized.
It has become a lifestyle that if Ayo now should just become a senator, what we are expecting from you is not even the law-making process. We're now expecting that Ayo now has this, has that.
In other words,
Madam Aliru will be wondering what's happening.
You are expecting the law-breaking Ayo.
Yes, because...
But that's not going to happen. Prof.
That's the culture. The Ayo who is now above the law. Yes.
Prof, again, about the lifestyle ambit. But if you can, speak to young people. Well, and I'm sure that Dr. Ade is also aware of it. It's young people today with technology, they sit in their homes, they make their money
doing
cool.
Corruption.
Some legit,
some
actually.
Are not.
Some legit.
Some are legit, but they don't do 8 to 5 like mommy and daddy, like grandpa and grandma did. But how do we monitor lifestyles in a way that the young people can say, that's the kind of life that I want to live. I don't want to live a life that will bring shame to my name or country.
Well, you honorably you say celebrate excellence.
Yes.
Celebrate
merit,
hard work.
Celebrate innovation. In other words, engage them in those higher order, what do you call it now, motivational incentive. Their ability to create and to do better than they have around them. But there has to be a whole level of mentorship, beginning from the home and mentors around the place. So you can't actually divorce the older people, the more experienced people, the family institution, and so on and so forth. So we need these icons to be a lot more active. In fact, when you talk about lifestyle, each of us needs to be disciplined. Each of us needs to be to step up the plate. I'll just give you, the reason why, if it's your cousin, your uncle, work on the person who is close to you. When I was in the secondary school and there was an explosion of frog menace, I had an uncle that would just appear in the boarding house and, just speak to me for about 30 minutes to 1 hour. He never directly said, oh, there's drug menace, don't take drugs. He would, after gisting, he would now say, well, some people were brought to the psychiatric ward just last week. It was Indian hemp that was the problem. It was later on I discovered that he was actually being sent by my grandmother to come out. So even though I was in that environment, that was something that was common amongst us. But the way he put it, without being judgmental, meant that if anybody offered me, I said, let's go and do this, I associated with psychiatry. So I would never go near it. So we still need, family.
So we need emotional deterrence. That's what you're saying.
Well, we shouldn't give up. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is where we have to just leave it for today. I mean, this is by no means the end of the conversation. In fact, it's only the beginning. There's still plenty that we can talk about regarding this, but we just have to thank our panel this morning. Dr. Olugbenga Adeoye, who is a chartered accountant and a lawyer, who was with us in the studio, as well as the Director of Programs and Senior Facilitator, Institute for National Transformation, Mrs. Juliet Benitier, as well as the professor who joined us via Zoom, Professor Olawale Ajayi, Professor of Legal, Social, and Political Environment of Business, and Head, Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School. Thank you all very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Corruption is for everybody to fight.
Indeed. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Are you in the tech world? Stay with us.
Now, we just finished talking about corruption. Thank you for staying with us. One of the ways in which this dealt us a big blow is through technology. I remember former President Buhari, I think that was in 2015 or 2016, talking about illicit financial flows and the harm it was doing the nation at the time. So now let's talk about how we can fight illicit financial flows using technology. Now, it's a deep-rooted issue characterized by a complex network of activities, from corruption, tax evasion, money laundering, illegal trade. These flows are diverse, and they are pervasive. They permeate quite a number of sectors in our economy. A reported $10 billion has been slammed on the widely used cryptocurrency trading platform Binance. Alero spoke about that earlier. This comes after the CBN governor, Yemi Cardoso, said the bank is concerned that certain practices go on that indicate illicit flows going through a number of these entities and suspicious flows. In case of Binance, in the last 1 year, $26 billion passed through Binance Nigeria from sources and users who we cannot adequately identify. That's a concern.
They have no faces.
Adequately identify. So even if you identify them, it's not adequate enough to hold them. Perhaps that's what he's talking about. Let's have conversations around tech for good, fighting illicit financial flows this morning with Dr. Yele Okeremi, who is CEO, Precise Financial Systems. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Very great pleasure.
We also have the president, stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria, Obina Ewuno. Thank you for joining us. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Okeremi, let's begin with you. Illicit financial flows. Fighting illicit financial flows. Governments after governments have talked about that. Do you think we're sincere in that intention?
It's difficult to answer that question of sincerity, other than by looking at results. And sometimes sincerity is not sufficient for achieving results. That's why I said, when you say whether they are sincere or not, I'm asking myself whether it's actually a relevant question or not. And the reason is that a sincerely incompetent person will not deliver results. And at the same time, a criminal who is clever will probably evade results. So I think, yes, it's difficult for me to judge how sincere governments have been about getting
the
these
fact
things.
that we have laws to deal with such a thing is not indicative enough of our sincerity.
So when you talk about laws or you talk about jurisprudence of the reasons why laws are made and all these things, so there are several laws that can be made, and the makers of the law already know ab initio that the laws themselves are crippled because they cannot be executed or they cannot be enforced. So then you ask yourself, what is the need of that particular law in question? All right. And so I think that talking about sincerity is good. We might talk about and harmonize it. But I think let's look at it and bring it to be kinetic and see whether, there are ways people may not necessarily be sincere, but the system guarantees that even when a criminal sits on that desk, the system guarantees that the criminal is bound.
It goes to the exact reason I'm asking that question. Is the system insulated from such possibilities?
The answer is no. Right now.
So I think you finally answered my question. Mr. Iwono, let's speak to, you understand all of these conversations. When we talk about illicit financial flows, it usually goes straight to the heart of technology. Now, is it something that you think technology can sincerely do? Dr. Akeremi has spoken to the people element. So the technology is not going to run itself, it's going to be run by people. As we are currently structured, do you see technology standing strongly enough to combat illicit financial flows in our country?
Yeah. Combating illicit financial flow is something that can be solved with technology, obviously. In as much as you may not achieve, say, a 100% sacrosanct system, because there will always be a way that people would find loopholes. So as you are planning on closing the loopholes, there are also people who are working to widen the loopholes, so it is something that has to take on a kind of consistent approach and, participation in. Now, when we look at technology that can be used to fight illicit financial flow, blockchain will come at the top of my list. Not because I am a blockchain practitioner and not just because I am the president of the blockchain industry in Nigeria, but because of the features that blockchain possesses that makes it most suitable for this. Now, one is the transparency, one is the immutability, and one very important feature of blockchain technology that has been largely omitted over time is traceability. Now, why is it the most suitable? Blockchain runs a transparent system of keeping records, all right? And this transparent system of keeping records is also immutable, meaning that you cannot delete or change it. And it is secured using cryptography. And blockchain can be traced, unlike what people promote out there or maybe misinform that blockchain cannot be traced. No, in fact, blockchain is the easiest system to trace. Why? Because the records on the blockchain cannot be tampered with. So you can always know who is doing what, at when it was done, where it went to, and those records are there permanently for you to see. It cannot be removed. So if we are able to achieve a comprehensive data or identity verification system and database management that is put on the blockchain, then building financial infrastructures on the blockchain is the best route to go. And when we have our financial infrastructures on the blockchain, then we know that we have a 99% safe and secure financial structure. So everything that happens on this network, everything that passes through our financial process, we can see it. All right. And it is attached to an identity, because most of the time, the issues with illicit financial flow is we do not know who is carrying out this transaction. There is this record that money moved, all right? And this money moved illegally. But who moved this money? And who do they move this money to? That has also been a very big problem in tracking and curbing illicit financial flow.
So are you saying then, my apologies, Mr. Wuna, are you saying then that one way or the other, we are aware of this technology and we are not using them?
I would say that we are largely unaware because people have always missed the major components of the technology, and they have focused on the minor components of the technology. What do I mean by this? We have the blockchain technology, which is like a big thing. But if you ask most people, what is blockchain technology, they will tell you it's cryptocurrency. And if you ask them what is cryptocurrency, they will tell you it's blockchain. So if somebody is engaging in cryptocurrency, they can tell you that they are doing blockchain, which is not true. Cryptocurrency is just one aspect of blockchain technology. Why is this more popular? Because it is the financial application of blockchain technology. And in fact, in blockchain, cryptocurrency is a part of digital assets. So we have in blockchain what we call digital assets as a sector. Now, inside digital assets, we have securities. We have proof of ownership, which is NFTs. We have digital currency. So you can see that digital assets is a sector in blockchain technology, and cryptocurrency is just one part of digital asset. Okay. But it has been blown to look like it is the entire blockchain system. Okay. But why is it?
Okay, just a second. We'll come back to you, Mr. Iwono. We'll come back to you. Dr. Rotimi, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You see, that's the real challenge, separating the technology from its use. So it's right. Absolutely, blockchain as a technology is right about the principles of immutability. Is right. I mean, because it's based on a simple principle. Like fundamentally, it's called linked. It's a linked list of sorts. So everything that happens is linked to its predecessor or its progenitors. So you can actually see the entire value chain. So to a reasonable extent, yes. When you talk about the fact that things cannot be altered, yes, in theory, I mean, all these are there. But there are other technologies that also provide that. But in truth, what he said is correct. However, what has happened is like people understand this technology, and what they are tempted to do is to come with a use case, and the most popular use case, or the one that popularized blockchain, was Bitcoin. And what they attempted to do was to use that technology looking for a solution, looking for a problem, trying to look for how do you use it, and then they took it into payment systems. And then they created the blockchain, and the Bitcoin, which, like Obina said, is actually some form of asset. And, you know, when it was being touted, a lot of information, a lot of misinformation, and a lot of disinformation came along with it.
Doctor, I'm a bit confused now because you just said things cannot be erased.
By the theory of it, yes.
If they cannot be
well, let's
erased.
not be easily erased. Let's put it that way, yes.
It cannot be easily erased. Correct. How, therefore, can technology also not trace the movement?
No, actually, it can be traced.
Sorry?
It can be traced. That's what he said.
Yeah.
So it can be traced. You see, the issue about this, that's why I said when the Bitcoin was being touted, and I have a feeling we were watching a commercial just before we start this program, and we all laughed at the way commercials are being packaged.
Through technology.
You know, in a make-believe. And there's a way people package their commercials with disinformation. And that's why I said there was information, there was misinformation, and there was disinformation.
About the technology.
About the product, and consequently,
in that commercial
technology. And that refers to blockchain and Bitcoin. And so, you know, people began to use words that they didn't understand. For example, if you attended some, I had the benefit of actually deciding, yes, let me attend some of these information sessions. And then somebody will come and tell you, oh, the dollar or the naira is a fiat currency, but the Bitcoin is not a fiat currency. I'm an economist. How do you define fiat currencies? And you say the naira is a fiat currency, the Bitcoin is not a fiat currency. The theory of fiat currency is right, and many people believed it. And many people went along with the fact that, oh, cryptocurrencies are not fiat currencies. Which currency is fiater, if there's a word? Then what's the meaning of fiat? Fiat currency emanates from the fact that it's a currency that's not backed up by gold. It's a currency that's backed up merely by the credibility of the sovereignty of the country, or the central bank governor, so to speak. And then you say the naira is fiat, but then you say the Bitcoin is not fiat. What is the security on which it is sitting? So those are the kind of things that happened. And then they began to tell us things like, oh, you can be completely anonymous and stuff like that. And some of these things are not actually true, like I said. So that's why I said a lot of information, a lot of misinformation, and a lot of disinformation. But the problem is this about life. Knowledge is good, but beliefs are stronger than knowledge. Mm-hmm. When people believe things, and when people believe means you are ignorant actually. There's a level of ignorance about belief. But when people believe things, it shapes their character.
It alters the knowledge that they have.
Absolutely. Because, ideally, knowledge is supposed to lead to a change in behavior. But beliefs are stronger in changing behaviors. So the beliefs about some of these things made a lot of people take decisions. And a lot of decisions that people took are absolutely irrational.
Okay.
Because there's absolutely no knowledge to back it up.
Obinna, are there specific vulnerabilities within the financial system that technology exploits for IFF?
You repeat that again?
Specific vulnerabilities that exist in the financial system that technology can exploit in IFF.
Illicit financial
vulnerabilities that exist.
Yes.
I think that there are quite a number of vulnerabilities that exist. The mere fact that we do not have a strong data management system in the country is amongst the biggest vulnerabilities that exist. And that is the first point of exploitation. Because if I know that there is no record of this thing, and I have the intentions to do wrong, I am going to do it. The one thing that every wrongdoer is afraid of is the record of the wrongdoing. And the only way we can ascertain that there has been wrongdoing is by providing a record of the wrongdoing. Because if you accuse me without an evidence, it is just an accusation. I cannot be held accountable for it. I cannot be held liable for it because there is no record that proves that I had done wrong. So that record keeping system, that data management system is the biggest vulnerability that exists. And you can agree with me that over 70% of our public infrastructure is not yet digitized. We don't have a digital record system. In fact, it is more of the private sector that has implemented a digital record-keeping system. But how can the private sector achieve wide implementation without the public sector, which is supposed to be, in quotes, an infrastructure provider and regulator? So, give you an example. in the blockchain industry, where I lead, we have asked for regulation. We are still asking for it. Because we do not want you to throw away the baby with the bathwater. That the bathwater is now dirty does not mean you throw the baby away with it. The baby is the treasure. So you should be able to remove the baby from the bathwater and then throw the bathwater away, right? And we have not gotten this. What did we do? At CBAN, we designed a code of conduct for virtual asset service providers and members of the Blockchain Association in Nigeria to adopt. And it is compulsory. Every single corporate member, every individual professional member of the association had to sign that document. And that document became our self-regulatory guideline, which covers everything in entirety that we are supposed to be doing as practitioners to make sure that there is consumer and investor protection and that the technology is utilized, that we use this technology with the right standards. And so there is no manipulation, there is no exploitation, there is no, sort of, give you an example for things like separating user funds and the system. You cannot mix user funds and your system because when there is a security breach, you would have not done enough to have protected your users. So you see, we now on our own have implemented regulation and we make sure that every member abides by it. But if the government has worked with us to design this regulation and implement it, then it becomes even more binding. We wouldn't have a case where there are foreign practitioners who will not be subject to the rules and regulations that is put down by our government to do business within the jurisdiction that our government controls.
Isn't that invisibility itself a kind of vulnerability? I mean, you talked about invisibility the other time. If I can disappear, then I can also choose to exploit the system, can't I?
No, you cannot disappear. Because remember, I made a statement. I said that there is one important component of blockchain technology that has largely been omitted, which is traceability. Remember that the first...
Do I have to have a known identity? Do I have to have a known identity to use this technology?
No.
Exactly.
Everybody on the blockchain system has an identity.
Do I have to? I can have an identity, but do I have to have an identity you know?
Okay, so now that is where the beautiful part of this comes in. On the blockchain, we have the public, we have the private, we have the decentralized and decentralized. Now, there is no how you can finish the points of a blockchain transaction without going through decentralized. So when you come into the blockchain, you are issued a digital identity. Now, the issuance of this digital identity is not for you to be anonymous, but it is a form of privacy protection which every single individual on earth desires. Nobody wants their public records out there, all right? I want to be able, I'm not trying to hide my records, but I do not want it to be out there in the public.
What if I don't, Doctor, just a second, Dr. Akeredolu, what if I don't want anyone to know?
You see, Obida has raised very critical issues. There's an adage in Yoruba land that the only way you don't want anybody to know anything is never do it. That's the only secret. Because no, it's the truth.
It will still come out.
Because even if you thought you were the only one that knew about it, maybe there was just a passerby. And so once 2 people know about it, it will be known. And you know, that was the thing I hammered on when I said, when these things were being touted in public domain, a number of things were said that were misinformation and disinformation. And he's brought up these issues. Because at that time, just exactly what I was talking about was, people were basking that, this thing will make you anonymous. And that's one of the things that a lot of people saw. And you see, it's brought up very key.
And that is not true, is it?
That's what I call disinformation. Because it's not true. However, the challenge here is, and that's why I say, how do we bring use cases that affect our lives? That's what I was talking about, being kinetic. Getting this technology to solve challenges that we know about and bringing out use cases. So a number of the use cases that are popular really are use cases that are creating challenges for sovereign governments. And that's why you notice that some of the use cases, so you see, for example, only yesterday I read that Nigeria is slamming Binance, some $10 billion or something like that. Some other countries have done similar things. Because one of the things that you are trying to say is actually insulting the sovereignty of nations. And I don't think any responsible sovereign is going to sit down and allow some of those things to happen. But let's take a look at another side of this. The e-naira is as crypto in currency as any currency can ever be. The e-naira, that's a use case. It's a blockchain use case. Absolutely same technology. But my opinion is that the e-naira could have been used effectually by the central bank and government to do a whole lot of things. And I can give you my views, for example. So today we are talking about is it cash transfers or something, or palliatives to certain people, and you want the monies to get to them. In my opinion, the best instrument that could have been used for that is the e-naira. And I give you the reasons why the e-naira remains, in my opinion, the best way to do it. Because number one, the e-naira guarantees that it moves, and just like we've said, it's traceable, you can see it, that it moves to the intended person.
Recipient.
Secondly, the e-naira or cryptocurrencies, one of the things that you could do with them is called programmability. Meaning that I can decide that the reason why I'm giving you this money is so that you buy food. But if I give you cash, the cash is yours, and you can do anything you like with the cash. But with the e-naira, I can program that I'm giving you 200,000, but 50,000 can only be spent in specific places for specific purposes. So you see that the blockchain does provide use cases for good.
So it can actually be used for budgeting,
absolutely.
Can be used to assign resources to ministries, departments, and agencies.
Absolutely.
In a way that is traceable and that is almost immutable.
It's immutable. That's it. So, so those are the issues. But one of the things that I've seen...
My apologies, my sincere apologies, Dr.
Yes,
Kreb. So it's also a good instrument to fight corruption.
Absolutely. And that's what Obina was talking about. But you see, like everything in life, all right, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. But you see, what I've realized about life is that when God created the world, he realized that the world doesn't need more than 0.01% of extremely smart people to make the world really go forward. And he also realizes that there's really no reason. In fact, if you have more than that, you're going to run into trouble.
Confusion.
There will be confusion. So he's created those people, but his intentions are that those people use that superlative capacity that they have to make the world a better place. But of course, it turns out that some of them, just like the question you asked when we started, begin to use the knowledge
for evil.
And they want to use the knowledge only to become bigger than every other person. And so they create contraptions around themselves that actually solve no problem or create no value, and then they sell it to the rest of the people because they know that very many people do not have the capacity to question what they are bringing up. They just follow by social proof. And then they become exceedingly rich, they become exceedingly great, and they actually cause a lot of problems. But every technology, the blockchain technology, excellent, fantastic technology, has limitations, but can be adopted for very many good things. So like I said, the e-naira, for example, I've said this, can actually completely supplant cash in theory and actually in practice.
But you see, we're talking about fighting illicit financial flows.
Yes.
How about the problem of access?
So,
access to the finances that will be flown illicitly. The people who, the average Nigerian would say right now that the people who have access are the people who are in government, who find themselves in a position of power, you know, who can do some of these things. Then, of course, there is no doubt that there are some other businessmen and women who are involved. Talk about, you know, young people as well who just wants to get out of the poverty bracket themselves and all of those things. The problem of access to those finances.
So, two things are important. We have to understand one maxim: you cannot trade with yourself. Okay? So once you understand that, it takes two to tango. So when we say people having access to resources, look, even if you had access to all the money in Fort Knox, if you cannot buy anything with it, it's as useless as paper. So it is when it flows that it becomes a current. And the current flows because you have other participants in the value chain. So ultimately, it's going to go to some people. And we are talking about the fact that, yes, it might necessarily emanate from, like you say, people in government, people who have access to certain things. But you see, you know, one of the challenges about crime or criminality is that the reasons why people, or the propensity to commit crime, depends on, number one, whether you are going to be found out. What are the chances of being found out? Number one. Secondly, what are the consequences when you are found out? And most importantly, in between being found out and the consequences, the process of ensuring that there are consequences when you are found out. That's what we call the technicalities. So if you look at it and you weigh it on a balance of probability, and you realize that if I do the crime, I'm going to do the time, most assuredly, it deters you.
But you need to do significant time.
Yes.
That will give you significant deterrence.
Absolutely.
Speaking to consequences there.
Yes.
Coming back to you now, Mr. Uno, but speaking to consequences, do you think in our touting, I use the word, you know, loosely, of our fight against crime, particularly illicit financial flows, do you think we have significant deterrence in the consequences?
Absolutely not. Remember what I said, that from the time you are found out, what's the possibility of being found out? That's what you call investigation. And if you look, I watched the last segment of this show, where it was said that in some other crimes, before they even come and talk to you,
they have finished the investigation.
In fact, you know you are in for it. So that process of being found out is a gamut. Then the technicalities of enforcement is another gamut. If you have substantial resources, you can frustrate justice in certain crimes. And that becomes an incentive for people to commit crime. And there's a loose joke that happened sometime in my office. And somebody came and said they wanted to award a contract. And the man comes into the room and they say, so how are we going to do this transaction? He said, look, this one, 50% for me, 40% for you, and then 10% for our lawyer. That's 100% of the work. They are not going to execute. It's already taken care of getting a very good lawyer. I mean, and it sounds funny, but this is the way things happen. This is the reality. So there's a way the guy commits a crime, it's even visible to the blind, audible to the deaf. And then the process, the lawyers go, and then there are technicalities, you adjourn the case, and then 20 years, the man is on bail, he's having fun all over. In Paris, he says he's going on a medical, he's suffering from heart attack or heart failure. So those are the kind of things that make crime very lucrative and very attractive.
Okay. And Obinna, quickly, before we go, how can individuals be trained and educated so that they can identify and report suspicious financial activities regarding illicit financial flows? Is that possible?
Okay. Yeah, sure. That is possible. It's something that we would like to encourage all corporate organizations and public sector to imbibe. You know, we already have professionals who are doing this. Let me give you one such example. Nigeria last year inaugurated they launched national blockchain policy. This policy design started way back in 2020, and it took about 3 years to be completed, of which CBAN, the Blockchain Association, was one of the stakeholders that contributed to that draft. And then after the draft, it was signed by the former president, Muhammad Buhari, and it was launched. And then a national steering committee made up of 29 members was inaugurated, including the CBN, the SEC, the NSA, the Army, different government agencies, and of course, we at CBAN, being the representative of the blockchain industry. Now, what is the goal of the government? To implement blockchain, to adopt and implement blockchain technology in the public and the private sector. So we want to see systems being built on the blockchain. We want everybody in Nigeria to start using blockchain. Okay, so what is the challenge that could hinder this? Is the lack of understanding of what blockchain is. So what did we do? We at the blockchain sector started doing wide training, education, and awareness for different government agencies, for the public sector, and of course, urging private organizations to train their people on blockchain technology. Why is it important? Because without that training, we cannot achieve what I call inclusive participation. We are driving two things at the same time, mainstream adoption and inclusive participation. And we can only achieve that when we have done these trainings and understanding. Because how can people use what they do not know?
Perhaps one might also want to begin with that mainstreaming the identify. Just a second. Perhaps a good place to start would be to even mainstream the conversation in the first place. Then other adjuncts such as inclusivity might also be coming into play. But it's a good thing that quite a number of people, things that you both have said, gentlemen, have talked about the fact that this is doable. Number one. Number two, the technology is in-house, is in-country. We're not importing it. Thirdly, the knowledge, if I will go by what Dr. Akeredolu said, at least 1% of us already have it. And that's enough. People that need it. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Dr. Akeredolu Rotimi, CEO, Precise Financial Systems, also an economist. Thank you so much for your time. As well as Obinna Iwuno, his president, stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria. He also joined us virtually. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and all the best, gentlemen. All right, so we switch now. The times are very interesting.
Interesting is the word.
Interesting is the word. So how do you cope in these interesting times?
Interesting.
Especially
maybe tough.
Yeah, in a way that doesn't completely alter your lifestyle. That lifestyle beat. That's what we're talking about next.
Challenges in life are inevitable. But the challenges we are facing in Nigeria now, are those also inevitable? So how are you coping? Just before we came on, I saw a commercial of something bull rice. And my comment was, they're advertising a bag of rice that is between 70 and 80,000 naira on television for us to buy.
For now.
Whereas our minimum wage is 30,000 naira. How are we supposed to go and do that?
It's just for now. It will pass.
That is just to give somebody belly ache and headache and all the aches in the world. So how are Nigerians coping with the circumstances in which they have found themselves? Miracle Ihoma is a clinical psychologist, and he's going to be talking to us about how to cope with difficult times. Good morning, Miracle.
Good morning, ma'am.
So, you were here when that commercial came on.
Yeah.
For the rice.
Yeah.
So how far now? How we good one?
Well, that's why as much as possible, I've reduced interaction with the news and what is going on. Yes, because it would reduce your productivity. In fact, it would, what you focus on is what magnifies, right? So that's why if you focus on the difficulties, it becomes bigger than it is, and it paralyzes you. But if you focus on what you can control, then you can be productive. And then, because really for a lot of people, they will do fine, or they are doing fine until they now begin to look at the news, the media, and see the price of these things.
Avoid it.
And then
miracle.
For some people, it's work.
Wait, thank you.
Yes.
Some people, they can't avoid it. You work in a bank.
Yeah.
And you
an
don't
18, 20-year-old comes to deposit cash in his or her name, running into tens of millions. Cash, tens of millions. You are a family man. You are looking for the next meal. School fees outstanding. Rent is due.
Oh dear.
And, this fellow comes and...
This child.
He's not a child anymore.
So
sometimes some people cannot avoid.
Miracle, 18-year-olds in Nigeria are still living in their parents' homes because they're still in school.
Sure. So in a situation where you can't avoid it, what happens?
Yes, you still need to look for a way to focus on what is in your control, because you have to realize that in life, there are things that you can change. There are things that you can't change. For things you can change, you go ahead to change them. For things you can't change, you have to change how you're thinking about them. So for instance, there's no way I can influence the dollar to the naira. I can't influence when rain falls or when it doesn't fall. So what I can do is to change how I'm thinking about that situation, because I can't change it. So I have to focus on what is in my control. and leave what is not in my control to God or to forces that, control that particular thing or those particular things, right? So why it is really not easy, and it's more in the faces of some people than others, we still need to look for a way to focus on what is in our control. And of course, there are other ways we can cope with the difficult situation right now, which includes living in the moment, living in the present. And that's very important, because a lot of the times people want to live in the future or in the past. But the past is past, the future is yet to come. All you have is right now. So stop living in what has happened in the past. Stop thinking about, what is going to happen tomorrow? How am I going to survive? Live in the moment, relish the present, enjoy the moment. When you take a meal to eat, enjoy it, live in the present, right? That would help you to, really cope with a lot of the anxieties and things that are going on. Another thing is put things in perspective, because for a lot of the times people overblow things and we blow things out of proportion sometimes. What I mean by that is, now sometimes people can begin to even personalize these things and say things like, I can't survive in this season. And really, if you look at it, is it true that you can survive? So you need to put things in perspective. Or my life is over. Your life is not over. This is not permanent and this is not personal. So you need to know that it's not personal and it's not permanent. It's definitely going to change. This is not the first time things have been difficult for a nation or for people, and hopefully it's going to pass. And even if it doesn't, you would always cope, because if you can survive 1 million sperms, and then win the race of becoming the person to be born, then you can survive, whatever challenge that you are being faced with right now in Nigeria.
Miracle. That analogy is something else. Can a person develop resilience? Can a person become more resilient now than they were, say, 3 years ago?
Yes.
How does one develop that?
Yeah, so resilience can be developed. And it's developed through changing your beliefs, because the reason a lot of people are not resilient is because of the beliefs they have about life. And sometimes it's as a result of their upbringing and that's why parents need to do better. You can't just give your children handouts and give them, quote unquote, everything they want without making them understand that life doesn't always work that way. Because if you give your child everything they want at every time they want it, then they will develop a perception about life that I can get anything I want anytime I want it. And when they go into the world and then realize that, I can't get everything I want whenever I want it, they break down, and then they're exposed. So if that child wants to develop resilience, he needs to begin to retrain themselves and retrain their brain to believe otherwise, and to understand that, for instance, rejection is not the end of life. No doesn't necessarily mean never, right? And if I face challenges, is a part of life, because if we look at the definition of mental health again, we realize that mental health, as defined by World Health Organization, is the ability of an individual to realize his or her potential. 1. 2 is the ability of that individual to also be able to cope with the normal stresses of life. So coping with the stress of life is an integral part of our mental health. And one thing I like about that definition is that it calls stress normal. So stress is the constant K of life. If there's anything that is constant, that anybody, no matter your size, no matter your height, no matter your wealth, no matter your financial status, whatever it is going to face, it is stress. So the only solution to not facing stress is to exit this world. As long as you are here, you're going to face one form of stress. Yes, you will look for ways to avoid certain stress. You will look for ways to cope with some, but we will all be faced with stress. So what is more important is how we cope with stress, even more than the stresses themselves.
This is really interesting. But to many people, resilience is a word from the dictionary, full stop. Now, what you're saying right now is that resilience has to be an experience that people have to go through. People have to know these things.
Sure.
And I'm also glad that you mentioned background, where people are coming from. There are some people who have been nursed and fed and they have grown on a diet of pessimism and negativity. They grew up in environments that are just not there. And they now found themselves in an opportune place. My friend was telling me about a friend who rose to the very top in the nation and along the line had quite a significant misfortune that saw to not being seen for years. For such a person to come out, and there are many watching us right now, many businesses have collapsed. And their children are not living the way they used to live anymore. Shame and allied forces, they are really attacking quite a number of people. Lifestyle changes have happened to them. Samademi said when he was going through his own, his meal pattern was 0 corn 1.
0 corn
1.
So the corn was not categorized as
no,
meal.
0, no food in the morning. You know, we had 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. His own is 0, was 0 corn
in the morning,
1.
corn in the afternoon.
In the afternoon and dinner.
Wow.
Many people, a number of people may have deferred to that. There are those who, their meat used to be like a feast, but now it's just like the tip of a nail.
Cube.
So, how does such a person build resistance? They didn't see it coming. A year ago, the dollar was not close to what it is now.
True.
So, how do people build resilience? Our concern here, as you have identified, is mental health balance. We don't want to lose lives simply because things are difficult. We want people to still be able to tell their stories of how they went through it after now.
How they survived it.
Yes. So that's it's really pathetic and it's affected everybody, right? And I empathize with every Nigerian, including myself, because we are in this together. When you called me yesterday, I was just laughing over the phone, and things like that. So I would say a sense of community is very important at this time. We need community as much as possible. And that's why I tell people that we must build communities within communities. So in that school that you are, the classroom or the department or the class that you belong to, build a community out of it. In that family, build a community out of it. In the workplace, build a community out of it. We must begin to build communities and support structures for times like this. Even if not for anything, for moral support.
Especially because you're not going through it alone.
Alone, yeah. Okay. So there is that community of interest in that sense, and then we can all provide succor. We can all provide that support for each other. It's important that you don't get isolated in this time, and then you reach out to other people, like minds, and then reach out to other people who are also going through the same thing, as well as the same way you are expecting other people to reach out to you. Reach out to other people as well. Know how they are doing. Let them know you're praying for them. Let them know that you are there for them in case they need anything. And if there's any way you can support, in case you are a bit more well-to-do than somebody else, because they call it less privileged. It means that there is somebody out there who is less privileged than you are right now. So you want to support in the little ways that you can. Sometimes it is not just about what you're giving, it's about what you are communicating, what you are giving. Because even if what you're giving is not sufficient, you are letting them know that I have you in mind and I am rooting for you. That's what that communicates. So it's important that you reach out to people and then help people every way that you can, morally, financially, and otherwise. Because we all need each other right now more than ever before. And we will surely get through this.
Miracle, in your practice, are more people coming in because of as a result of the times that we're in? And what kind of issues are they coming to you with?
All right. That's a very interesting question. And the plot is a bit dicey in the sense that, a lot more people are going through mental health challenges now. But then a lot more people can no longer afford it. Because therapy is expensive.
It is.
It's not cheap, right? So relatively, right? Because I don't like to use the word expensive, right? It's relatively, expensive. So it's dicey. So people who can afford it, of course, are coming forward to access therapy. And a lot of the issues are surrounding, it's a bit diverse. But one thing with therapy and with counseling and the trends is that it is seasonal, and the season affects the type of cases. For instance, a lot of the cases in February were relationship issues, marital issues, and things like that because of the, so it was typical of that month. And right now, yes, we are seeing a lot more people who are dealing with depressive symptoms, anxiety because of the times. And there are a lot more people, like I said, who really want to, but they can't afford it. Of course, we try as much as possible to do pro bono for the ones we can, right? But of course, we can't
do pro bono for everybody.
Because that's also my source of livelihood.
Exactly.
You don't want to need a therapy.
Exactly. You have to buy that bag of rice.
Exactly. So
okay.
Yeah.
To the community that you spoke about, please be as clinical as you can. What role should families play?
A major role, actually. Families.
Don't forget, I said should.
Yeah.
Because sometimes family is the stressor.
Exactly.
I said sometimes. Why are you looking at me like that? Sometimes in some cases, for some people, family is the fact that you know that you're going to get a call, get a text, stuff like that, and then you feel bad that you're unable to help and all of that. Then there is the role of friends. We'll come to, there are three of them.
Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah.
But talk to us first of all about family.
Yeah. I believe that the reason why God created, or the family was created in the first place, was primarily for support. All kinds of support, physical, spiritual, emotional, or otherwise. Because family sends a signal that you're not supposed to do life alone. That signal is sent, even though a lot of people don't understand the purpose of the family. The purpose of the family is primarily to create a sense of support, financially, emotionally, morally, and otherwise. And it's very important that families play that role, especially in such a time as this. So families need to step up to their responsibility and begin to make sure that we are supporting each other. We are holding each other by the hands and all of that. I know community is missing a lot in families right now as a result of technology, because a lot of people within the family feel more connected to people online than even their families. And we need to begin to change that narrative. It is why there is a rise in mental health challenge, because we are losing community to individualism. We are now promoting a lot of individualism, and if you look at it, it is why it looks like for a long time Africa was a place of resilience, because we had a sense of collectivism and we grew in communities. Everybody raised everybody, everybody knew everybody, and that was our strength. But right now we are losing that gradually to social media, to individualism and things like that, and that's affecting our mental health negatively. So we need to get back to that and begin to function in the way family was created in the first place.
How about friends? Because that's another, that's supposed to be another community, right?
Yes.
And there's something that I heard from John Susan, a veteran broadcaster years ago, that there is always a public. And in every public, there are small publics.
Yeah.
So in your committee of friends, there are still those smaller silos of friends. How should people structure their friendships now in a way that it doesn't stress?
Yes. So I tell people that he who doesn't have friends is not so much better than he who has bad friends.
Oh dear. Try and be nice.
Yeah.
Your name is Miracle for a reason.
And that's the truth, because when you don't have friends, even though a lot of people pride in it, I don't have friends, it's not a good thing. Because you're supposed to have friends. You're supposed to be able to have 1, 2, 3 people that you can confide in, that you can talk to, that you can be vulnerable with, right? And that's what even Solomon Jesse in ancient history talked about when he said there are friends that are closer than brothers. Because we all need those type of people in our lives. And for some people as well, the other set of people who have bad friends, it has even a greater effect, negative effect on you. Because Henry Ford said something. He said, your best friend is the one who brings out the best in you. So it means that
Your
anybody...
worst friend is the one who brings out the worst in you.
So it means that many people's best friends are actually their worst friends. They are foes, not friends. So you really want to make sure that, okay, the friends you have around you are people who are bringing out the best in you, especially right now, so that you can maximize your potential and go through, because some friends are weights, they're not helping in any way. So you want to do an audit, right, this period, and make sure that, okay, the friends you have, pass the test of friendship, really. And then if you don't have friends at all, you want to really reach out to people who are like-minded, have like values and beliefs, and get them into your circle, because you need friends at this time.
So you have to what you're saying is you need to audit your friendships.
Exactly.
So okay, this one is for this purpose, that one is for that purpose. The ones you put in your bedroom, the one you put in your kitchen, and the one you put in your toilet. Okay. How about faith? I said there are three. Family, friends, now faith. What does data say about the role of faith, any religion, any faith at all, in coping with difficult times?
Yes. So faith scientifically has been proven to have a significant positive effect with resilience or coping with difficult times. And it looks like people who have faith tend to thrive more in difficult times than people who do not. And it is logical, because look at it. I believe that there's a higher power. I believe that there's somebody who is called God, who is looking after me, who is looking over me, who would make sure that, I get sorted out no matter the challenges I go through. And then there is somebody who doesn't believe in that, who believes that whatever happens to him is as a result of faith, not faith. And whatever happens as a result of his own efforts or just natural circumstances that happen. Who is most likely to go through a difficult time? It will most likely be me, because I believe that no matter what happens, there is somebody who is going to take care of me.
So
this one doesn't believe that.
Belief is a significant
It's a significant role. I play a significant role. So faith actually has, in fact, when it comes to even suicidal ideation and people who, kill themselves or die by suicide, research has proven that it is more difficult for people of faith to actually die by suicide than people who don't have faith, or people who do not believe in a higher power, right, called God. So faith has a significant role to play at this time. And of course, if you are out there, I don't want to tell you what to believe, right, because this is not a religious show, but that's what research shows, that if you have faith, you are more likely to actually thrive during difficult seasons like this.
Okay, so what is your last word now to Nigerians who are watching us now, who are thinking that this challenge we're facing now, this not being able to pay school fees, not being able to pay rent, not being able to feed the children, these things are going to last forever? Please talk to them and encourage them one way or another.
Yes, so in addition to what I just said about faith, another thing that is very critical and very important in thriving in difficult times is what is called locus of control. Locus of control are two types. We have internal locus of control and external locus of control. Internal locus of control talks about the belief that whatever happens, to me is actually determined by my internal qualities. And then external talks about what happens to me is determined by external factors. Now, people who usually thrive during difficult times are people who believe that they can actually change their situation based on the things they focus on, while people who believe on the external focus of control, locus of control, are people who, tend not to thrive as well as those, who have internal locus of control. So what I'm saying in essence is focus on the things you can control and, do away with, get blind to the things that you cannot control. You cannot control the price of dollar to the naira, except, of course, you are the president and people within that space. You cannot control when rain will fall. So don't focus on that. Focus on what can I do? My mental health, self-care practices. I can, exercise more. I can eat more nutritious meal. I can call a friend and interact with them. I can, pray to God and believe, that things will get better for me. Those are the things that you can do, and those are the things that you should focus on. Very importantly.
Clinical psychologist Miracle Ihoma, thank you for coming to give us these words of encouragement today. I think right now everybody needs some kind of encouragement because.
And in case you lose it, what happens to those who lose their faith?
If you talk to somebody really, because of course.
Because it is the same people.
Talk to Miracle Ihoma.
It is the same people that made them lose the faith in the first place.
You can't do life alone. Talk to somebody really. Gain some perspective, from somebody else. Most likely a professional who can help.
You haven't told us how music can help us to cope with difficult times. So we'll talk about that one another time.
Sunrise will return with the home stretch in just a moment.
Okay, so this is the home stretch. I don't know whether, our guest can answer that question of whether music can help to... Don't look at him yet, he's not here officially. Okay. But our artist of the week, I say is a...
where's my pick?
Syncomat. Singer, comedian, I don't know. He's not a singer. He's a singer, he's not a comedian, he's not that. I can't say whether he's an actor or not. But
are you a comedian?
A singer, songwriter, music producer, winner of the 2023 Africa Magic Viewers' Choice Award for Best Soundtrack category for Anikulapo. Kent Edunjobi, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, you have to tell us, where did that Kent come from? I know K-E is Kendi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Kent came from way back secondary school when I just entered into the SS class, the senior class, and being a science student, we were taught the first 20 elements. So my friends and I decided to name ourselves after our first favorite element. Mine was oxygen because it gives life. So I now took my name, Kennedy, I shortened it to Ken, so then plus oxygen. So the Kent is a combination of Kennedy plus oxygen, but later, now trying to re-evolve and rebrand.
You remove the oxygen.
I removed the oxygen and brought in
the plus.
Edunjobi and plus. So Edunjobi meaning the Oriki of Ibeji. So it now became Kent Edunjobi.
So that is the scientific formula of your name.
So we have got to QED.
That is the scientific formula of his name. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin by, let me also say, or rather add, to the Anikulapo soundtrack.
Yeah.
The first
beat.
Tell me how that came to you. Because the only thing that I can remember of such tracks is Hubert Ogundi.
Okay. So for that first beat of the film Anikulapo, I did a lot of research while doing it, because obviously from the script point, we all knew that the film was a big deal. From reading the script, even from the first synopsis, then down to the first script, second, third, fourth, fifth, to the seventh, we knew that this was massive. So everybody needed to put in their A game. And for me, because it's a different genre of film entirely compared to what we've been used to doing in Nigeria. You know, trying to stage back, to the early good old days. Meaning that the kind of music we have to do can't be too contemporary, but then because you're showing it also, or the viewers are also the contemporary, people or minds. So we need to have a very good balance. So I had to do a bit of, not even a bit, I had to do a lot of research. Just like you said, I listened to a lot of Ibat Ogunde songs. I never knew I was going to do that, but it was quite it's very exciting experience. Yeah. So listen to a lot of Ogunde songs, listen to some of our new school songs. Had to go start reading some of these old stories about the old Oyo Empire. How the kind of instruments that were being used then, and then try to see how it could subtly marry them with our own new school feel. So it doesn't just feel like, you're thrown deep into those days. Try to strike up. So it was a challenging experience, but very, very beautiful one, an exciting one.
Rewarding?
Definitely, because at the end of the day, it got me AMVCA. At that, I never saw coming anyway, because the way I work, for me, it's more about the work. Okay. Once I do the work and I'm satisfied, and that's it for me. So the award was just like icing. Yeah.
Okay. Computer science and statistics.
He's not computing music.
Yes, I'm computing music.
You are computing music.
Did I give you the answer?
Okay, no. You are now doing music on the computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somehow there's still correlation.
Okay. So, at what point did you decide no more statistics, no more computer science? I'm going into music.
So I lived in denial for a very long time. I've always known from age 6, 7, 8 that music was what I wanted to do. I remember there was one time I was very ill. I was at a very young age, and I got well. And the first thing I told my mom was, Mom, I want to become a choir master, And she looked at me and she just laughed. But then I could remember very well where and when I said it to her. It came from a very, very deep point of conviction. I knew that this was what I wanted to do. But then, of course, my family came. I'm from a family of bookworms, people who love books. You have to go to school. You have to work. The proper 9 to 5. So I just told myself, I said, well, those were just wishful thinking. I need to go to school, get my degree, and probably work in a bank or work in an IT firm or whatever. So, but along the line, so I just told myself music was going to be just for fun. Music was just going to be for fun.
Okay.
So I would go to events, concerts with my friends who perform, and even when they're sharing money at times, I'll just say, I'm not for the money, I'm fulfilled already. But at my final year, I did a demo with my friends. So I played it to one of my cousins, and she listened, and somehow she got some kind of divine message, and she called me and said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And when she said that, I know not to argue with her, because obviously it was what I always wanted to do. Even while I was saying, no, I want to work in,
work in the bank.
Or in the bank or whatever. I knew that this was like my first love. So I started, say, okay, let me do music by the side now. Let me take it by the side. But 2016, I had to quit the law firm where I was working.
You were working in a law firm?
Yeah, I worked in a law firm for 6 months. It was just a very brief stint. I first worked in an accounting firm. Then from the accounting firm, I worked in a law firm. Then it was at that
thickens.
point. Yeah, it was at that point I knew that no, this wasn't it. In fact, the first day I resumed the law firm job, that was when I knew that this guy, you need to stop 9 to 5. Because it was like, it opened my eyes to life. Like, is this what you want to keep on doing for the rest of your life? Happiness is key. And I realized that the only thing that gives me happiness is music. So at the point where I was going to be confirmed after 6 months of probation, that was when I dropped my resignation letter. Obviously, that was when I met Mr. Kunle Afolayan, and of course, he would always discourage me.
And as they say, all the rest is history.
But before that history, before we wrap up the history, how did you eventually convince mommy that is music that you want to do?
Well,
because all parents want their children to be doctors, lawyers, engineers.
It wasn't hard at all. Because my mom was she's a lover of music and a very spiritual person. Probably she had even seen it. The only painful thing that she didn't live to see me get to where I am today. She died 2012. But before then, I had started recording, and I remembered one day I played all my recordings to her. But I had to convince some. My brothers were really tough, but when I started the music, all I did was just to call one of them, the toughest one, called him into my room and played one of my recordings to him, and he listened the first time, he said, rewind. He listened the second time, he said, rewind. He listened to the third time, and he looked at me, he said, just call on me anything you need.
Wow.
I'm going to support you. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. And I'm like, okay, am I still in this world? Because this guy naturally would scold me and even box me up.
Okay. Now, I have also heard a rumor. We will come back to the hit track.
Okay.
But I also heard a rumor that even though you have your own signature sound, and you can also mime other singers.
Yeah, so my talent, how did I discover my talent? I discovered my talent through miming and mimicking people. I was so good at it. When I was a kid, my dad would buy video cassettes of Ebenezer Obeking, Sonia Day, Sashina Peters. Sashina Peters was my idol. I mean, still my idol anyway. And I would listen to all of them, and I would mimic and try to dance.
Give us an example.
Dance like Shino.
Give us an example. No, you don't have to dance, but sing.
Okay, so...
Okay, we have one that we can play. I just want to ask, did you pay royalties? This is vintage King Sunny Ade.
Yeah.
In fact, the current, because he himself has evolved over the years, but this is his current style.
Yeah, so, I mean, he was one of those people I listened to back then. I mean, so, the good thing was, I wasn't just listening to the audio. I was watching, I would always watch videos, and I would just look at them. And because of that talent of mimicking, it just sticked. I knew how he would pronounce his words, his phrases, how he will add the R.
Where it didn't exist?
The linking R.
Yeah, the linking R. You get, so it fascinated me a lot. So as I was developing my sound, it was just very easy for me to pick those things and say, okay, this here, this there. There is a particular song I also did. It's going to be releasing very soon. My last time in London, I met Ebenezer Obey's son, Pastor Folari, and I played the song to him, and he looked up, and he said, how were you able to do it? Nobody has sounded this close to my father. And I was like, well, that's where my talent came from. So, yeah, I could mimic anybody I want to.
So much so that you even mimicked his backup vocals.
Yeah. So this particular album, that we're doing, of course, I'm a music producer as well. It was so interesting for me to record the KSA style, because I had listened to almost all of his songs. I know how the drum sounds. I know how the chorus sounds. I know how everything sounds.
His syncopations, his accompaniments.
So when it was time for me to record the BGVs, and they did the first set of BGVs, I had to wipe it up and say, no, you guys are not getting the vibe. I'll do it myself. And as I was doing it, everybody, they were all laughing and they were wondering, where is this coming from?
And because it's also in the mix.
Yeah.
It's also in the mix, the balancing of the back.
There's a way Baba's talking drum used to sound then, a bit of reverb and slap delay at the high end.
And his own talking drum is different from what Ebenezer always talking.
Definitely. So, I mean, I'm just grateful for that.
So for the copycat that you are.
Yes.
Did you have a particular encounter that informed the song Ebenezer?
So that song is something that is beyond my own understanding. Because the way the song came, the previous year I wrote a song titled Onoara for my choir, and we did an album Onoara. And the album previously we did went viral. I mean, within the church confines and few of outside the church. So when it was, obviously every year we would have our anniversary, and we would usually present new song. Being the lead vocalist, I am supposed to write a song. Everybody have brought their song, we've treated it. I was the only one remaining who was supposed to bring his song, and I will always arrange everybody's songs anyway. But for somehow, maybe I was having writer's block, or I wasn't just, the inspiration wasn't coming. So people kept asking me, where is the new song? Where is the new song that we're going to write? I kept telling them, Omagbewa, don't worry.
Who is one?
Omagbewa, like,
the inspiration will come.
Yeah, it will come. But honestly, nothing was coming to me. So there's this particular day, I was just at home, and I'd already decided in my mind that if nothing comes, we'll probably just pick one of our popular songs and present it that day. Obviously, people like the song, so. But this particular day, I just prayed, and it wasn't the conventional prayer of, it was just like a wish, or, where you say something out of your mind. God, why don't you just give me one song? Even if it's a small chorus, let me just teach, and let's just perform it. And I remember the first time I taught my choir the song, there were a bit of mixed feelings that even me, myself, I was like, maybe this song is not too great. So I went back, rearranged the song. It was more like a 3-session song. But one thing that I noticed was that at those stages, the words that came to me were phrases that God has dropped in my mind years ago. So if you look at where I said, like we were saying, you'll see the King Sunny Ade influence in it. Yes. So those were things that have dropped in my mind. Those times when I will always watch King Sunny Ade, try to. So at as it would be, I was in my studio one day, and I was bored. I started checking Instagram, and then I heard a song from Toluchi. I didn't even know, I don't know whether he's the owner of the song, but I just heard the song, Moria no Bao. And it was, after hearing the song, it was like it opened a tap of inspiration. Yes. And I immediately went to my piano. My wife was seated beside me in the studio, and I started singing, okay. And I asked her, does this line make sense? She said, okay, yeah, it's fine. Then I'll look up again, okay, like that, the lines started coming to me one by one, until the song was fully written. And I asked her, do you think this song is good enough? She said, yes, it's nice. I said, do you think this song is as good as Onara or even better? She said they sound different, but this is unique on its own. So I got a little bit of confidence from that. We performed the song on that Harvest Day, and that was it. But for me,
was that the first recording of the song?
Yes.
This one?
Yes. So for me,
this is the first recording of the song?
Yes.
Wow.
So this recording was done in church. So now, because whatever it is I want to do, I want to do it to the best. I learned from the masters. I saw people like Kunle Afolayan, Wole Onikobams, and the rest. You know, these people they are so good at what they do. So I try to marry my experience in the film and music together. And I told my guys in the choir, I called the technical team and I said, we're going to bring in cameras, we're going to bring in gadgets for multi-track. I want to multi-track this song. I want to record it like we're doing a studio recording, and I'll take it to my studio and I'll remix.
Work on it.
And we did that.
Okay, let's listen to a bit of it. Royalties. You have to pay royalties. I've heard KSA.
The owner of the song asked for the royalty.
I've heard KSA. I've heard Obey in this song, and so you have to pay royalties. Don't worry, I will I'll collect on their behalf.
Oh, I see.
I'm not a collecting agency, but if I collect it, it's because I've also listened to some of those songs over the years.
Yeah.
Where to from here? So, first of all, how were you surprised? How did you receive the blow up of the song?
It was shocking. Shocking in the sense that after I did I was talking about the recording, mixing, and all. After I did that, I kept the song in my hard drive and I left it. And the choir started talking about producing a new album. And while we're producing the new album, I remembered I said, there's this song we did last year that we're supposed to push it out. That if we don't push it out now, when are we going to put it out? It will expire. And I was saying, should we put it in the album? In fact, I had already included it in the album. But they said, no, let's remove it, let's reserve it, or probably. So I said, okay, why don't we just release it as a single? And then, okay, just upload it. So I went and I uploaded the video myself. Now, when I noticed an unusual movement, traction on it, and I kept wondering, but in my mind, I just felt this was something that would just last maybe for a day or two, and it would die there. But at every morning, I will always receive messages, this Ebenezer. Then this so I was like, okay, maybe by tomorrow the buzz will expire. But day by day, kept on getting bigger, and all I could for like 2 weeks, I could not see anything, because I was just wondering how.
What makes it different?
Yeah, because even for me, I when people will come and they'll say, oh, this line, this must be from the Holy Spirit. This must be from this, and I'm like, okay. I'm trying to remember when I received the call from my phone and Holy Spirit said, okay, start writing this, it's of course, there are times you get inspired, and you hear stories, but when these things happen to you, it's a different story entirely. It's something you definitely, even up till now, I'm still wondering, but I've just learned to accept fate and just embrace.
Okay.
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 Well, we've almost run out of time.
Yes, we actually out of time.
This is a personal question I want to ask you now. Where's your Taiwo?
Oh, she's good. She's great.
Does she sing as well?
Just in the choir.
She's in that choir?
No,
That was another choir.
She's based in the U.S.
Oh.
Yeah.
But she sings as well.
Oh, yeah.
What next? You have 30 seconds.
So for me, I'm going to be embarking on a series of marathon recordings. I'm going to be dropping my EP very soon. I'm also going to be embarking on my 2024 tour as well. And there are several collaborations. This year for me is really a very busy year. I mean, we have songs already that are going to be dropping, and of course we have the body of the album work that's going to be dropping as well. So it's a really busy year. I pray for grace.
When I was growing up, I'm going to release an album. Now I know. Now it's dropping. Anyway, Ken plus Edwin Jobi. Abi?
Ken plus
Edwin Jobi.
That's the formula.
Yeah, formula.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. Singer, songwriter, music producer, and winner of the 2023 Africa Magic Viewers' Choice Awards for Best Soundtrack category for Anikulapo. Again, thank you. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
And all the support that you need. And that's it.
That's our show for today, the first Saturday in March. We hope to bring you a fresh edition next Saturday. I'm Alera Edu, wishing you a happy weekend, and until then.
And I'm Ayo Makini. I'm looking forward to a train ride. I just don't know when or where or how. But hey, maybe you should
The blue line from Marina to Mile 2?
The red one.
The red one.
I love the color red. It's bright and vibrant. But blue, maybe because I'm wearing blue. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye for now.